Hello everybody, I'm Perry. Today I'm with Eddie Stone, the founder and the CEO of Touchstone Essentials. Hello Eddie, how are you?
Just fine, Perry. How are you today?
I'm good. Eddie,
Okay.
Thank you very much for being here with us again today.
Sure.
Eddie, today I would like to talk about the 7 signs we desperately need to detox. Okay, I saw this article and I find it's very interesting. I would like to start from the first one, constant fatigue. I am one of those, Eddie, always feel tired.
Always feel tired.
Yes.
And I think that's a constant description people have of how they are throughout the day. And I think there's several things involved. I mean, part of it is in a modern world, you know, we've got our mobile phones beside us all the time. I think a lot of people actually sleep with them next to their bed. I don't know if that's a good idea, but that's what people do. And it seems like there's always some place to be, someone's looking for you. And so we seem to work and have a hurried pace about our lives. And so the lifestyle of a modern world, I think, is demanding and can lead to people feeling sort of chronically fatigued. But when you add on top of that the other aspects of the modern world, which is chemicals, man-made items, electronics with signals, you know, whether it's your mobile phone or microwave ovens or televisions or the internet or Wi-Fi. I mean, sort of everywhere we turn, our bodies are bombarded by what I feel like are items that we can think of disruptive to sort of the normal human condition. You know, they stress our systems. And on top of that, it's the chemicals we use in our modern living as well. And so, you know, if you find yourself in traffic, right, most big cities, I'm sure this is true in Thailand as well, and other parts of the world, anywhere you're traveling, where you find yourself in traffic, and you don't think about it so much, but that exhaust that you're breathing, which you have extra exposure to when you're driving down the road, you know, it's got heavy metals and other environmental pollutants, so cadmium, lead, mercury, cadmium particularly, which can be disruptive to the production of energy at the cellular level. And then, of course, there's chemicals used in agriculture. You know, you can be in a rural area, right, free of the city's traffic, but all of a sudden you can turn and look at a crop duster spraying a field or what a farmer might be using to basically as a fungicide, an herbicide, a pesticide. And so we have this sort of one of the hidden components of modern living is toxic exposure. And so you know, it's disruptive to the way the body works and so constant fatigue is one of these things people suffer with. And so, I mean, for me, you've really got to be conscious of trying to free yourself as much as possible from these exposures. That's why I believe having a sort of a holistic view of life, sort of this mind, body, soul, taking care of yourself, self-care is critical. So constant fatigue is a big problem.
When I hear this, I really feel like our lives are in danger, you know?
I believe you're right. You know, if you look at what happens, I mean, one, there's a very practical side of that. If you look at people that don't get enough rest because they're so tired, they're almost too tired to sleep, right? You may have heard people give that description, or they don't have enough time to sleep, right? We hear of accidents as people driving down the road because they fall asleep at the wheel, or accidents in the workplace, particularly people working in manufacturing with heavy machinery. And so on a very practical level, we are threatened, and it happens all the time. But we're also threatened because there's no question that the stress on our system, it's impacting our immune system, so we're more vulnerable to developing degenerative diseases like cancer, cardiovascular disease. We more easily gain weight when the system is stressed. You know, stress is a big factor. The stress hormones that come from just constantly being tired also make us more vulnerable to kidney, liver disease, as well as diabetes, and of course weight gain, cardiovascular disease, even cancer. So it does threaten us, right? If we don't try to do something about it, it definitely threatens our life and our lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And how about the second one, the autoimmune problems?
Well, autoimmune is for sort of simple description, is when the body turns on itself. We have this very sophisticated immune system which allows us to survive pathogens and other toxins and deal with disease and common coughs and colds and flus. But when there's damage to the DNA, when the body is overstressed, very often what happens is we'll develop an autoimmune problem where the body literally is attacking itself. And one of the downstream issues associated with that is increase in inflammation. And so, when you have an excess amount of toxins in your life and you're not doing anything to try to clean up the toxins in your life, and there's a body burden that builds up, right, over time, then your immune system is going to try to react to that, create inflammation. It's going to try to deal with the heavy metals, environmental pollutants, and it doesn't know really what to do with them. That's not one of sort of the native functions of the body. And so autoimmune problems crop up, and frankly, we find this happens in large part because these toxins that the body doesn't know how to manage wind up in our tissues and the sort of the soft areas of the body. And so it's a real issue to be concerned about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. How about the skin issues?
Well, that's one of the first places where the body begins to say, it's trying to give you a signal that, hey, you know what? You've got some issues and some exposures that you need to deal with. And so very often the body can react with acne. You can see people with adult acne, and when you start to look at their lifestyle, very often it has a lot to do with that lifestyle, a combination of the ultra-processed foods that they're eating. It can be general exposures to toxins in the workplace, and so people can have breakouts, you'll hear it commonly called, and it can go to the other end of the scale where it isn't necessarily that you've got issues associated with breakouts and acne, but it's dry skin, rashes, itchy patches, very, very uncomfortable, right? I mean, nobody wants to be dealing with this. And you'll hear drug makers talk about drug products to try to deal with these types of issues, but at the end of the day, if we begin to sort of clean up our diet and be conscious of our exposures from a lifestyle standpoint, we can have a big impact without having to turn to drugs.
Mm-hmm. But Eddie, how can we say, like, when people have acne, maybe sometimes can be from hormone or something else too?
Yeah, no question. We don't want to make a blanket statement that all skin issues or acnes or things like that are coming from environmental stressors, right? But we know that a large amount are sort of coming from these external environments outside of the normal activities of life, particularly when you look at the teenagers and things of that kind. And you'll have some adults that are just more prone because of hormonal issues to adult acne. When we get into the rashes and the dry skin and the itchy patches that won't go away, it's not coming because you were exposed to, say, something like a poison ivy or things like that. And then you begin to realize, hey, these are environmental stressors causing these problems, and we got to pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm. And then the fourth sign, difficulty concentrating. I mean, these days, even children, the young kids, we have these same problems.
We sure do, and it's really heartbreaking, isn't it? When you see these kids, it almost seems like it's this chronic, growing disease state, and sometimes, we refer to it as ADD or ADHD, all the way to kids that are on the autism spectrum with fear from their parents and others about environmental toxins playing a role in those troubles. And then just in everyday life, I find myself that when I'm in an environment where I have excess exposure, travel often does that for me. I don't live in a big city, and so I get myself into one of those city environments, and I can really notice sort of that mental fatigue that goes throughout the day. Some of that's probably coming from travel, but one of the things we know is that heavy metals disrupt the production of ATP at the cellular level. And we need that energy, right, to maintain our concentration. And when we don't do anything about that, if we don't do anything to try to rid our body of these heavy metals or aid the body in that detox process, instead we turn to another can of Red Bull or another coffee or whatever happens to be, then we're really making the problem even worse, because all those nerve stimulants, they're probably keeping us from getting a good night's rest, which we know is a time period where the body uses the resting state to help to repair and to help to manage these environmental toxins and pollutants that we're exposed to. So it's almost one of these things where it feeds on itself. The tighter I get, the more I look for stimulants, instead of really dealing with the problem of exposure, and sort of the worse it gets, and my concentration goes down and down and down. And I mean, all of a sudden you meet people and they go, you know what, I'm good for the morning hours, I'm terrible for the rest of the day. Well, you know what, the rest of the day is a long time, and it's a shame that you have to throw that away because you've had that loss of concentration.
Mm-hmm. But what if we take a nap during the day? We would help?
I think a nap can be very helpful, but the challenge is for most people, they just don't have a lifestyle that will allow them to take a nap. At least in the U.S. where I live, the way the workday goes and the fact that most households have to have both adults working to make ends meet and sort of the demands of the economy. And so I'd be a big fan. I'm an advocate of trying to find a nap. I've got a good friend up in Philadelphia that he believes in a power nap. And a good 20 minutes in the early afternoon and he's ready to go. But for most people, it's just difficult to find a way to do that. But I agree, a nap is a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then number 5, frequent headaches.
Well, all of these things begin to have a cumulative effect. You see folks that develop as adults issues associated with migraines. And that often is the result of allergies and other issues of that kind that are coming from environmental pollutants, or could even be coming from developing food sensitivities. And again, we go back to all of the processed foods, and it isn't just as simple as saying, hey, a food is processed. It's looking at the fact that, well, it's processed with all these chemicals, and they're not chemicals that are native or found in nature. They're not things that our body really even knows how to recognize, work with, or manage. And so these are stresses that we're bringing on from the environment into our nerve system, the way our body functions, the chemical reactions can lead to problems, just as we were talking about with concentration. But in that same vein, for some people, that concentration problem shows up in the form of headaches. And I tell you what, it can be very difficult because it goes all the way to the issue of migraines, which are almost debilitating. You can have folks that'll lose 2 or 3 days where they're sort of just confined to their bedroom. They're having to shut the curtains and do things to keep things dark because the light sort of makes that problem worse. And so it also builds on top of this same series of issues we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And number 6, trouble losing weight. I think it's very interesting, especially for women.
That's right. And I, we spend a lot of time with folks as a lifestyle company, a lifestyle supplement company. We spend a lot of time with people that are trying to fight issues that we've been describing, but also weight control. It seems that is one of the major casualties of modern living. That's in part because the ultra-processed foods that make up most people's diets, they're very high in calorie. They may be satisfying in the moment because of those calories, but essentially, if you want to control your weight, it's a combination of the calories consumed and the exercise or the output. You know what? If you're constantly fatigued and tired and you've got headaches and other problems, you probably don't feel like exercising. And so now the calories begin to add up or begin to accumulate weight. And so it does make it difficult because all these things sort of work together. But another side of this is, in a more sort of biological side, is that when the body is exposed to volatile organics or environmental pollutants, and it really doesn't have a system in place of how to manage that from a general sense, particularly some people who have real acute problems, the way the body will manage those things that it views essentially as a poison is it will sequester them into your fat cells. So once this happens, right, the body's protecting itself by putting those chemicals into those fat cells, the environmental pollutants. This is where we begin to really see yellow fat. Brown fat we make is more easily burned. Yellow fat, very difficult to get rid of. Well, then the body also has a protective nature about it where it doesn't want you to necessarily break that fat down and re-release those toxins. So literally, it will hold on to those fat cells as a protective mechanism, right? So all these things really, they begin to accumulate and make it difficult to maintain weight and all these other things we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the last side, it is sleep problems.
Well, we've mentioned sleep, and that's because all of these things are really a part of a larger problem. You know, whether it's the issue associated with the constant fatigue or the autoimmune problems, skin issues, the concentration, the headaches, and the challenges with losing weight. Well, sleep goes right there, because what happens if you're constantly fatigued? You're probably going to consume excess amounts of caffeine or other nerve stimulants just to make it through the day, right? You're tired, you have to get things done. You're a parent with children that have to be taken care of in the evening hours. There's homework to be done. There's probably laundry and house cleaning to be done, or at work somebody's demanding an extra report. And you know, the way most people work now, they don't just work 5 days a week, a 40-hour-a-week job. They're probably working some on Saturday. They're probably working some on Sunday. All of these things are so stimulating. Then go back to what I talked about with mobile phones or other screens and devices, or just the concerns of the hectic living in the modern world. Somebody goes to sleep and they're not in a good place to fall asleep, right? Mm-hmm. And so all of these things work to exacerbate the problems, because the one thing we know is that the less sleep you get, the more challenging it is to control your weight. So sleep deprivation, because of the environmental stressors, contributes to weight problems. All of these things combined with the other issues we've talked about. And so the modern living, and for the audience, and one, I appreciate the audience diving deep into the subject matter, right? This isn't the most sexy dialogue to be having, but if we want to make the most we can of the life we have, right? You want to live as healthy as possible, live as long as it makes sense, right? Have a positive impact on other people, then you've got to take a holistic approach. And so managing toxins, you know, we have products that we deeply believe can help your body or aid your body in detoxification, but you've got to be conscious of the lifestyle issues, right? And think about exposure and what can you do to minimize exposure and put yourself in a better way to be successful from a healthy mind and body standpoint. I did some yoga this past weekend with my daughter. Hot yoga, great way to sort of sweat out toxins and encourage the body. Exercise in general, walking in a good, clean environment. So all of these things sort of combine together. And of course, we believe, and I don't mind advocating. You know, we believe in the role of zeolites. You know, we believe that they can play a big role in supporting the body in this detoxification effort. And since all of us are going to continue to breathe tomorrow, right, and we still have these exposures we can't get away from, it's something to be focused on from a systematic and a constant standpoint. And so it's we think about it a lot, just as we think about nutrition and food density, but we also think that detox is one of those major factors in living as healthy as we can.
Eric, can you say once more, like how to take zeolite correctly, you know, effectively? Yes.
Sure. So if you look at what we offer two products, right? We have our Pure Body, and we call it Pure Body Regular just to help us with the distinction, and we have our Pure Body Extra. And zeolite is opportunistic. And so when it's in your body and available is where it works. It doesn't accumulate over time. And so if you have normal renal function, body function, when you take zeolite, it should be evacuated out of the body in say a 4 to a 6 hour period of time. Now we're all different, so that might be slightly different from one person to another. And so the frequency that you use it is important and helpful. And so I think of it as having it in the morning, sort of first thing. You know, I wake up each day and try to have warm to really super warm water with maybe about a half a lemon in it, a couple strong shakes of cayenne pepper, and then I'll also have some zeolite, right? It's a way I sort of jumpstart my body and get my body functioning, and I get that zeolite in there so that it's present, it's floating through my system. And then I try to make sure late morning to the lunch hour, you know, I have more. And then I try to make sure I use it again at dinner and then before bed. So I've sort of covered the length of my day. We suggest that a person use it 3 times a day to 4 times a day. So you have to figure out what works inside your lifestyle. If you can only use it once a day, that still has a positive impact. It's just not as helpful as using it 3 or 4 times a day. And the way our products work, our Pure Body Regular has a mean average size of 0.04 microns. And I know folks probably you don't care a whole lot about some of that chemistry there, but what's important about that is it keeps it operating inside of the digestive system, inside the bowel where there needs to be detox, as well as getting into the soft tissue of the bloodstream. Now our Pure Body Extra, this is a nano-sized product, so it's actually small enough to get inside the cells. And so now this is a whole another area of detox that's available. And so these two things work in concert together. They work very well together and support really an entire body detox in terms of aiding the body and getting rid of these toxins. So that's how we designed them. We pay close attention to making sure that the cages are clean, they're sized properly so they can have that maximum impact. And so that's why we put it together the way that we did.
And I have a question from one of my viewers said, does zeolite remove any vital mineral from your body, from our body?
You know, there's no evidence to support that. And so we're conscious of the research that's out there. The good news about zeolites is from a cultural standpoint, they have a history that goes back as much as 5,000 years ago when in Chinese cultures there were clay-eating societies and they discovered the clay would help to fight dysentery, right? And so the clay they were eating was rich in zeolites. So that's sort of where it began. Then with the Romans using it in their water systems inside their cities. And so we know a lot about it, and we know it doesn't accumulate in the system. There's really no side effects that we're aware of, and so it's a good, safe product to use.
Mm-hmm. Many people from my channel they're happy with the zeolite, but some they said they can't afford it. What would you suggest for this?
Well, I'm conscious of that, and I'll tell you, I wish there were a way to price them even lower than we have. Mm-hmm. I think the retail price for a Pure Body Regular is $38.95. That's a very, very competitive price for a product with certified cages that have been cleaned, as well as certifications regarding the sizing. And so a person just has to think, you know, as they prioritize their budget on a daily basis, can they reprioritize a dollar? Essentially, we're talking about $1, say $1.25, into something that has so many personal health benefits. And it's funny, sometimes I'll be talking to someone and they might say, oh my gosh, $1 a day or $1.50 a day, and they're holding a Starbucks they paid $4 or $5 for, right? And so it's just a question of priorities. And I'll tell you right up front, I won't apologize about the pricing, because I know we're incredibly price sensitive and trying to make sure we offer to our consumers a real value. But we do realize it means for most people they have to think about their budgets and how they prioritize what they do. The same reason in my household that we prioritize buying things that are organic and organic cost more than conventional. But we believe that investing in our health is one of the most important decisions that we can make. And so that's why we prioritize and do it the way we do.
Mm-hmm. And the last question, Eddie, and if some people would like to join your company, you have any opportunity for them?
Absolutely. And I'll back up just a moment with a little bit of my history. For almost 30 years now, I've been able to work with supplements. And if you've heard me on here before, I've talked a little bit about that. I don't want to bore everybody. But my introduction to the supplement industry was through direct sales. And one of the things that I appreciated about that introduction was I found that it was a chance to start a business, to be in business for myself without the traditional financial risk and responsibilities. And so I was actually able to begin in this industry on a part-time basis. In fact, I had a job that probably was using up about 65 to 70 hours my week. So it was really on a limited schedule. But because I was excited about the chance to talk with people about health and nutrition, and I realized not everybody has that same excitement, but I saw it as a chance to go out there and have a real positive impact on my community and my family. And so I became an advocate of the company I was exposed to. And this system of business that we have allows you to earn a royalty on the purchases of the people that you share this with. So we call it a referral. And so for somebody that's looking at what we're doing and they have an interest in developing a business with us, we have a very rich royalty program that will pay them on a weekly basis for both the customers and or members they expose to. And for those that are listening that your interests are stronger than that, and you've got an entrepreneurial spirit, and I'll tell you right up front, I'm an entrepreneur. I love to build things. And when I saw a chance to be in this industry almost 30 years ago, I thought it maybe was the greatest chance to build something I ever had, because it's a business without borders. And so literally from North Carolina, we're at a pretty limited global exposure. Over the years, I was able to develop a business in Japan, a business in Europe, in Korea, in all parts of the world. And now here I am working with you, and we're developing some business in Thailand now, right? And so if you're an entrepreneur and you like to build things, there's a chance to build something here. Teams and organizations, if you're a coach, if you're a teacher, this will play to your strengths. And the advantage we have over traditional businesses is it's not just the direct business that you create, but it's the impact of those businesses on other people and entire teams and organizations that you can earn a residual income from. And so there's probably more to discuss than we have on time for the call today. Maybe we'll do a show just on this subject matter. But if you're an entrepreneur, we'd like to talk to you, because there's a chance to advocate for healthy living here, and the type of income opportunity here can be measured not just in the hundreds and not just in the thousands, but there's significant amounts of money that can be earned for those that this is something they have an interest in.
Okay, Eddie, can we talk more about this next time?
We can always.
Okay, Eddie, thank you very much for today. I see you again next week. Okay, have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Please thumb up and subscribe. Tomorrow, see me with Ken Dunn with Galactics Update. Bye bye.